What's going on, NEM crew? Welcome back to another video. Today is day 4 of the Datsun build 2.0. Today we're actually switching things up a bit. We're going to be working in the engine bay. Let's dive right in. Alright guys, as I mentioned earlier, we're moving on and we're doing something with the engine bay, which is a little bit different. If you guys have been following the last few videos, it's been mainly suspension based. And at the end of the last video, we're kind of moving into getting everything prepped so we can start disassembling the rear end of the car. So this is a full switch. We're moving it and taking a step back, and we're gonna get the engine bay completely wrapped up today, meaning intake, header, hood, button everything up in a nice little bow, and then we can move on to the rear end in the next video. If you guys haven't been following the past couple videos, I'll have everything linked in the description. Go check that out and then come back to this video because we got some sick things happening. But before we move forward, we got to get some exhaust studs on the cylinder head, so we're going to dive in and do that first, and then we'll start getting things rolling. Let's do it. Alright, I wanted to take a second just to compare these two headers. So this is the header that was on the car before. This is the new big beast that's going on. As you can see, it definitely stands out being blue, so it is coated in some heat protection. How much that'll actually do, I'm not too sure. With these engines, the intake and the exhaust being on the same side, everything that we can do to prevent any heat soak is key. So I'm not actually going to wrap these headers like these ones are that came off the car. I just don't want it to have any issues with the header prematurely rusting out or wearing. So we're going to leave it as is. We have a heat shield we're going to put on the intake though today. But the biggest difference you'll see is this header here actually has square ports, which matches what the cylinder head has. So you might be thinking, well, if this has square and the cylinder head has square, what is this? So this is actually the wrong header. I've mentioned it in many videos. This is the wrong header that we had on the car. So this one here, as you can see, is all round ports. So that's not what you want. There was an exhaust leak. It was making all kinds of noise. You're losing a lot of performance. The car was ultimately running like crap. One other thing you'll also notice is that this header here, the distance between the actual mounting plate or the mounting face and these header tubes, like there's not that much of a distance there, and trying to get to these bolts on the inside here, it's very difficult. There's no room to squeeze your hand in between the side of the block and the header. However, this new one, they're a lot longer, giving us a lot more room to squeeze, let me see if I can hold this here, our hand in between the header and the block. So there's a lot of room, as you can see here. So hopefully that'll assist with installing this and any maintenance we have to do in the future. So that's kind of the goal. If you guys are interested in this header, it is made by Greddy, and I believe they teamed up with another company. I'm not sure if it says on here. What is it? Trust in Greddy, I think, is what it is. But I'm really excited to have this on the car. It should be fun to actually have a header now that doesn't leak. So let's go ahead and mount it on the car. Alright guys, we're having a little bit of issues with the header going on, which is fine. I mean, This is the first kind of real speed bump that we've run into. I'll give you a little bit of an explanation what we had to do. So this piece here extended out further to here. We ended up cutting it a little bit short so the hose can go on. This is just for the PCV system. We're going to see if now the header will go on. This is the amount of pipe here that we took off. So it was a significant amount. We pretty much just set it up so there was enough of the pipe still exposed where we should be able to get a hose on there and clamp it no problem. We'll see if that was enough so the header now will actually slide on without impacting this. If not, it may be a case where we actually cut this pipe right here. We'll have to get a bigger hose and maybe an adapter involved, but hopefully everything goes on smooth now. We'll see what happens. Alright guys, it looks like we're going with plan B. I don't know if you can see here how close the header is to the pipe. So we're gonna have to just cut this thicker pipe and figure out how we're gonna get that line to the PCV system. Might have to use an adapter of some sort. But that looks like it's gonna be our only choice. But other than that, the header is on there. I mean, it fits pretty well. So we'll just have to take the header off for the 4 millionth time and cut this off and see what happens. Alright guys, so I don't know if you knew this, but the engine that's in the car is actually off of an 81 280ZX. So I have the block here for my, for the engine that came with the car. I was just looking to see how the PCV system works on that and see where the hose runs out of the block. Just because that header is actually meant for 240, 260, or 280Z, and you'll see, if you can see here, the PCV hose just comes straight out the side. It doesn't come in on an angle towards the back of the car. So in theory, if I had this engine with this block still in the car, we would actually have no issues. So what we're doing is making the same thing on the block that we have. So that's just gonna require a little bit of finesse, but we'll get it working. It'll be no problem. And then once that's cut, we can put the header on, torque down the studs that we can, and then we'll work with the intake, get the heat shield on, plop that on, and then there's a bunch of other things that are more boring, but more the tedious stuff. So the fuel lines, all the wiring, injectors, connectors, fun stuff that may not seem so fun and appealing over the videos, but it's actually something that I enjoy doing. With the header installed, bolted up, we can now move and shift our focus onto the intake. We're going to put this heat shield on here because I wasn't running a heat shield on the intake prior to doing this part of the build. I'm hoping that with this heat shield installed, we won't run into a lot of heat soak issues. Ultimately, there's not too much we can do to prevent this. Now I know it may seem like a simple process by these few clips here, but this intake actually took me hours and hours to get installed on the car. Having to finesse each individual bolt to get it to fit, it is an absolute nightmare, but we got it done. Now we're going to wrap up the wiring, the fuel lines, and some small minor little things that attach to the intake, and then we'll be good to go. Alright guys, that's a wrap for day 4. We got a lot of progress done. everything in the engine bay is pretty much wrapped up. There's some minor things. I feel like at the end of every video, I just say there's some minor things that we have to do regarding the installs or the parts that we put on. That's just the way it works when we're doing the build. There's always going to be little things that we have to just kind of check up on and get done. But the intake, the header is on. All of the wiring harnesses, the fuel lines are back together, the hood is on, and now in the next video we're focusing on the rear end. We're going to get everything disassembled. We'll see how far we get. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you guys like the build so far, make sure you subscribe, leave a thumbs up. It'd mean the world to me. Thanks for watching again. If I repeated myself, I probably did. Peace out and stay classy, Crow.